Hi, my name is Joshua Tavares. I wrote this article, and if I could show everyone on Earth one article, it would be this. Before I read this article, I want you to get no paper, a pad, even go on Google Docs or Notes if you're using your phone. I want you to do this. Just write down your answers to these questions. Question 1. Do you believe freedom is an inherent right? Yes or no? Question 2. Do you believe life is an inherent right? Yes or no? Question 3. Do you believe freedom must be deserved? Yes or no? Question 4. Do you believe life and survival must be deserved? Yes or no? Do you believe that you are free? Yes or no? Question 6. If you believe you are not free, what will you be willing to do to fight for your freedom? And the final question, question 7. Have you or would you be willing to abandon the word and concept freedom and free? So let us begin. Here is the reading note. This article serves a fundamental contradiction that serves an entire worldviews are built on. So take it slow. Take no offense personally. Think about it long and hard. Expect you will feel cognitive dissonance. Let us begin. Freedom. It's not about deserving. If we must deserve basic survival, then it is privilege, not a right. Freedom on condition is no freedom at all. It doesn't matter if someone deserves help or not. It's not about deserving, because that implies you have to earn it. If you must earn something, it is not inherent. If life and freedom is an inherent right, then a lack of basic necessities and resources threatens your life and safety, and therefore your ability to be free. These must be given unconditionally, never withheld. If these basic resources are not unconditionally available, then your right to life and therefore freedom can be withheld by others in the system that controls those resources. If it can be denied, taken, or is not inherent, it cannot be a right. It's a privilege. And those who control those resources to hold power over you, they can coerce you. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed equally by one and all. Before class society or state, resources were freely available with the precondition that your labor, which still meant life wasn't an inherent right. Now, all those resources are controlled by the capitalist class, protected by state violence, so that workers don't use those resources to sustain themselves and other workers under this control like before, but now under the rule of the capitalist class, with every reason to make life conditional to their benefit. They hold your right to life, your freedom, upon the precondition you sell your labor to them as they gain a greater benefit and value from others' work they didn't do themselves, and give a proportion of the value you made as a wage, as a ever more increase their capital to expand how much value they extract off the work they didn't do, aka profit/surplus value. The alternative is you die. Assuming you don't try to obtain your necessities through alternative methods, legally, community-based, or otherwise, the unconditional right of life and therefore unconditional freedom overrides a person's and system's ability to set a precondition to those, no matter how hard they worked to get that ability. Under this framework, to be complicit in withholding anything that without threatens or severely harms your life, survival, and thus the ability to be free, is paramount to murder and oppression. If we must observe basic necessities that without threaten our survival, you are not free. If life, and therefore freedom, cannot be guaranteed unconditionally in a society, for whatever reason, if it's their fault or not, then life and freedom cannot be inherent, and therefore is not freedom. Conditional privileges are hollow excuses for freedom. Now, you either accept that freedom is impossible, and we must abandon the word and concept, or that it is possible, that we are not free currently and live on a gradient of unfreedom, with the closer to more people having democratic or free association, access and control of resources and basic necessities, the more we decrease the difficulty of the precondition, the more people will have control of that precondition until it doesn't exist. The closer we are to achieving the distinct, separate state of freedom, where necessities that without threatening life are guaranteed unconditionally, and therefore life and freedom becomes meaningfully inherent. Now, in finding this contradiction, you might feel a deep cognitive dissonance. The first option of accepting freedom isn't as impossible. You are not free, and never have been free. And abandoning the word and concept will be too much in conflict with having comfort saying you're free, or having to say I am unfree or I am less free, while believing in no action or recourse to reach closer to that freedom sounds incredibly depressing to remind yourself of. So naturally, in any way you justify it, whether through the lens of practicality, saying it's too high of a standard, something, human nature, redefined freedom, etc., etc. Whatever the justification, either quietly tries to justify necessities that would threaten your safety in life, should or must be conditional, but still claim life is a human right, and therefore the ability to enact your freedom. Again, if your life and survival is conditional, whether it was a systematically set precondition, the genuine lack of resources, with the means to access their abundance, then life and survival are privileges, not rights. And by proxy, your freedom is conditional and therefore not freedom but privilege. If your freedom is conditional, it is not freedom. This option doesn't fully want to admit or say that freedom is impossible, either to themselves or others, so they do it quietly, of course. The second option of denying human rights exist, and that all we have is no rights but privileges. Authority is, in the coercive sense, is a source of power that can revoke privileges using force. If you accept this paradigm, then you either play into it and become the most powerful dominant authority, with how to achieve that depending on the ideology, or adopting the ideology best suited, or you dedicate your life to abolishing coercive authority so no power can take your privileges. Or the third incoherent position, where you kneel to power just enough, willingly or not, so power doesn't see you as a threat to revoke your privileges. When the nature of power is consolidation of it, and the desire for more power and privileges, and thus more desire to revoke yours in favor of themselves, authority will make you feel like you aren't their target, that you're special, that the boot will come slower or less, or not at all. Maybe even make you think you're in with them and can become them. As long as authority makes sure there are people with less privilege than you, then you will kneel in your complicity, no matter how low they drag you down. If you do not fight authority and are complicit, you are functionally with them as you continue to work for them and play their game. Just avert your eyes and comply. That's what many Germans in Nazi Germany did. Silence allowed and continues to allow millions to die. If you find yourself complicit, not a willingness, but fear or exhaustion, and feel powerless, then this read will be the boost to fight for yourself and others together. Lastly, the third option tries to remove the idea that life, and therefore the ability to enact freedom, must be inseparable and unconditional to have any value in practice, and that freedom can be separated from necessities. Again, whether in our current society, where the rich capitalist class privately controls the mass majority of distribution and production of resources that threaten safety and life without those resources and tools that are protected by state violence, as all laws inevitably come around to people with guns coming after you, politely or not, or depriving you of resources to make it incredibly difficult to obtain necessities without using alternative means, with some means having violence used against them to protect property. As in our current system, property and profits are more valued than human life and survival. Whether through a gun or the economic Rube Goldberg machine, if your safety and survival is threatened if you don't comply, then that is coercion either way. In our current society, the precondition to survival for the worker is selling their labor to the capitalist. For the small capitalist, the self-employed, the modern artisan-like freelancer is laboring either by themselves to produce something with a few others, with them still laboring together directly, or the freelancer who has more control over their working conditions must still sell their labor. These people are your mom and pop shops, family single store family businesses, your artists, and are much closer to the working class in conditions than those above them. To the big capitalists, whose only preconditions is propping up, maintaining the economic system that makes life conditional to their benefit, to exploit workers, maximize the amount of value they can gain from workers while giving back the least from the value gained to you that they can get away with, expansion of their ever-growing capital to exploit and benefit off labor they didn't do, the expansion of how much they can exploit and grow their capital, and their class privilege to do so, to maintain being a capitalist or become a worker again, beholden to capitalist. It is not a question of if a capitalist will do all these things, but a question of how much and how will they do it. Even the most nice and kind capitalists will have to make decisions like these. Or whether in a future society where the precondition is still labor, but control of those conditions and who benefits from it are the many workers controlling it democratically, or at least to further workers' interests. Laboring for the collective benefit of society, laborers, and yourself, having resources, distribution, and production be democratically controlled by workers. Your life, or at least your quality, is still conditional on that labor, or the bare minimum that an essential part of the working class must labor to maintain the survival, advancement, and comfort of all. But in this society, actively achieving the goal of a post-required labor, post-scarcity society is the North Star and goal. As production and distribution of resources becomes more democratic and controlled by workers, the amount of required hours reduced, the difficulty of required labor reduced, the amount of required laborers reduced, the expansion of abundance and resources that can be used, the efficient reuse and lifetime of already existing resources increases, the closer we march towards a separate state of freedom. On this struggle and march to less unfreedom, to the separate state of freedom, only life is unconditional is when life and freedom will be human rights. Now you're probably thinking all living beings labor in some form to meet their needs. And as of our current technology level, you are correct. Until we can create a machine I'll dub the Omnimation. a self-replicating, improving machine and program that can maintain, invent, build, harvest resources, improve itself and all other machines it makes, with little to no human input required to fully automate all tasks we democratically decide we do not want to do and meet our needs. Then, yes, being logically consistent with the lines of reasoning presented, we achieve a separate state of freedom when we get Star Trek sci-fi levels of technology, like fabricators, a technology that is democratically controlled and accessible to everyone. But until then, we can't enhance our bodies for longer, healthier living with new biological, medical, and mechanical technologies. You can enhance your body right now by working out and eating healthy, when the future where healthy food is more accessible and there's more places and time to work out will make this easier. But we can get pretty close, even if not truly philosophically and definitionally free. If the only thing forcing your labor isn't artificially human-made coercive structures and hierarchies, but the laws of physics, and people have democratic control of how much, when, where, and what they labor and who that labor enriches, most likely it will enrich themselves and can directly help society. But personal projects for yourself are great in society. Then that reaches a virtual freedom. Not quite, but close enough for functional everyday life, for feet on the ground and eyes pointing to the North Star that is true freedom to always progress towards. If freedom is 1.0, virtual freedom is 0.99. That's a theoretical maximum optimization of the metrics mentioned before using current technology. In our final analysis, the issue itself isn't labor. The issue is how labor is organized and controlled under capitalism. Under capitalism, labor isn't free or cooperative, it's coerced. And you don't labor to serve your community or yourself directly, you labor under threat. Work for a boss, or risk hunger, homelessness, or worse. That's not natural. That's a system of forced dependence created by privatizing the things we all need, food, shelter, land, and tools, and putting them behind a paywall, protected and enforced by state violence. What we're fighting for isn't a world without labor, it's a world without coerced labor. A world where people freely contribute to society, not because they'll starve otherwise, but because they're a part of a community that shares both the responsibility and the rewards. That's real freedom, and the general strike is one tactic to move us in that direction. Decentralized cooperative systems are exactly what this is pointing towards. But those systems can't grow in soil-poisoned lands due to capitalism. We have to organize, withdraw our labor from exploitation, and start building new ones. So there are two options. You either accept freedom is impossible and kneel to coercion and oppression, or that we are not free in our current system and must create the world and system where we are. If you choose the second option, the road less traveled, to truly value life and freedom as rights, peace, land, and bread, to value bread and roses, if you're willing to accept that you are not and never have been free, and in the struggle of uniting workers and humanity to become free, you are willing to accept, you may become less chained in victory, but never see freedom in your lifetime. To grow robust, positive freedom and enhance autonomy by making life less conditional. To grow the tree that you may never live in the shade of. Then we at least agree that's the goal, and we can debate how to get there. To help even the smallest way, to you, I tell you this. One must always remember the struggle against the ruling class who would drag us deeper into the spectrum of slavery and subservience and take away control of our labor as workers and the world's resources is never ending. That is, if you are unfree, we must protect our current position on the unfreedom spectrum from sliding and always moving it forward to less unfreedom. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And the first step is join General Strike US and educating yourself on the value and power of labor and how to move beyond the world of capitalism and move it into a more fair and united world. Alright, so that's the article. Really glad. Pat yourself on the back for listening to this. High five. Alright, so I want you to look back on the answers you wrote down. And I want you to write the same questions down and ask yourself and see if your answers have if your answers have changed now. If they haven't, you're probably in like some state of deep cognitive dissonance where you're switching between like two completely opposite positions and are just like appealing to authority or something. Or like the fear of repression or suppression, or like you already agreed with one side of these paradigms already, and you already were consistent in your beliefs. In either side, whether you already believe that freedom was impossible or that freedom is possible, and we must create the world where it exists. And you just like already had an idea of that. At the very least, now you can see the before and after. This is Jim and Joshua, over and out. A better world is possible.